Contrary to what some people think, triggers are not biological. They are not physical logical. They are completely mental. And coincidentally, much of our life is mental. Let me tell you what I mean. I'm a deacon at Calvary Christian Center, and as such, I'm responsible for securing the church at the end of the day. That entails 3 or 4 step processes, which means that I go from one building, lock it, key in the alarm code. I go to another building, locking it, key in the alarm code. And finally, I go to yet another building and key in the alarm code and lock it. To complicate matters, one of those buildings has a box containing all the keys that's required, and that box has a combination. So I had completed the process on this particular night and locked the final gate, and I'd gotten into my car, turned the ignition on, and I was ready to go. A young man I know who attends the church was walking towards me, tapped on my window, and told me that he left his eyeglasses upstairs in one of those buildings I just talked about. This was the end of the day, and I was ready to go home. Now, were I an ordinary man, I would have had something to say about this. I would have had him wait until business hours on Monday. After all, he had already been told by the church administrator that there was nothing that he could do about this evening. He'd have to wait. But he came down to the church anyway. But I'm not an ordinary man, so I turned my car off, went to the key box. But before I went to the key box, I unlocked the door leading to the room where the key box was. I went to the key box, unlocked it, took out the keys to the building where his glasses were, and coded the alarm system off in that building that I was in. And then I went to the building where his glasses were. I unlocked the door, disengaged the alarm, gave him access to where he could get his eyeglasses. I must tell you though, I felt pretty good about myself because I didn't have any emotions around this particular event like some people would have. In fact, I thought to myself, whatever good is going to come out of this is not clear to me right now, but it's been brought to me, so I'm going to accept it. It is at this point that I started to think about what people tell me sometimes. They tell me that as a human being, you have to have emotions. And when things upset you, you have to respond. You have to react. This, I believe, is patently untrue. So after he got what he needed, I went back to the room where the key box is. Of course, I coded it out, set the alarm in the building that I was in. Went to the other building, put the key back in the box again, set the alarm on that building, and I was about to leave. I actually was sitting down in my car to write this speech that you're listening to right now because I felt so good about myself and saw it as a teaching moment. Just as I did that, a car came up and was turning into the gate that I was about to lock, and the young man driving the car told me that his girlfriend left her telephone upstairs in the same room where the other guy left his glasses. Again, were I an ordinary man, as I said, this would have taken the actual proverbial cake. I was determined that I was not going to be dictated to by my outside circumstances. I repeated the same steps, took care of him, and he left. But before he left, I told him the story I just told you, except it was much shorter than what I told you. I asked him, how is it that you chose to drive all the way back from where you were in the hopes that someone would be here to help you? He answered me with one word, made my heart faint: faith. It is that same faith that allows me to maintain my disposition in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Now, you may think that what I just described to you is simple and it's uncomplicated, but people have actually had more terrible outcomes for much less stuff than that. Now, what occurred was simply a stimulus. And a stimulus is something that happens to you, or it could be a thought of some kind. You've got to train yourself to think about things in a certain way so that whatever happens to you is part of a process that ends up being for your good. There's no such thing as you should be mad about this, or you should have an attitude, or you have a right to punch that guy in the face, or even you have a right to shoot someplace up. those are merely excuses for not taking the opportunity for subduing the urge that's inside of us all that we allow to trigger us. And oh, as for my good, the second young man was so thankful, he gave me a $20 bill. And of course, $20 bill is not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all. But I think you got the principle. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. And thank you, Victor. I really liked the message of this speech. What I took away from it was we can control our emotional reactions to the triggers that happen in our lives. And when we do, we will benefit. And I like that message. I really think it's one that resonates. I really think it's one that we can all hear and learn from, because when we're not controlled by those emotions, we can better enjoy our lives. We can be kinder to the people around us. There's so much that is good in that message. So I'll share with you a little bit of what I liked, that I think you did a really good job with, and how do you amp up that message? What are some things you might want to add? So first, I did want to share with the club what was something you asked me to take a look at and keep an eye out for. And what you asked me to consider was, were you bringing the proper gravity to the story so that you could get that emotional reaction from the people that were in the club? So that's something that I want to pay attention to and give some commentary on, is like, what emotions were I feeling? How were you creating emotion through your speech? So first, like some things that you did that I think helped inspire some emotion is starting by sharing a little bit of your message at the beginning. So you said triggers are in your mind. They're not just physical. In fact, they are in your mind. That's what they are. And then you launch straight into the story. And what that did for me is it made me curious, because I'm like, something's gonna happen. There's gonna be some sort of trigger. I was intrigued to see, what does this message have to do with you closing up after church is done? I don't see it. So that curiosity was something you used to great effect. I think also you kept it moving at a really good pace. You had two stories. They were very efficiently told. They were parallel, right? You had the one person, you had the second person, and you could see your reaction to both. So you didn't waste any time. You kept it going, so I was never bored. And I think that was a really effective use of your time. So I think that kind of curiosity and that good pace really kind of lent itself to you telling a really effective story. So what am I going to challenge you to do? See what you think about this one. Ironically, what I'm going to challenge you to do is actually add more emotion, more emotional appeals, which feels like it's the opposite of your message, right? Because you should be trying to get us to be more calm like you were, and to be able to respond to the situation with, that same kind of peace and not getting angry. But I think what I found is through your speech, I was feeling calm. The person was coming in, they're looking for their glasses, and you were, in the way you were telling your story, you were very calm, you were very level about it. And that's how I felt. I'm thinking maybe what you should do with that story is actually maybe play up, maybe with this situation, you would start feeling like another room, I'm going to turn off this, trying to bring in that repetition, trying to show that annoyance in your tone to kind of show how people might feel in that situation, try to get us to kind of think about, how would I feel in this situation? Oh, I'd feel really annoyed. Oh my gosh. And then contrast it with your calm. So I think that's something you might want to play with, is actually trying to actually add some of those big emotional appeals to kind of help people think about how they might be feeling, and then contrast it with how actually you are feeling. Oh, but actually how I wasn't feeling that kind of emotion. So I think that's be something you could consider, is trying to help us lean into those annoyed emotions through your tone, through your repetition. So then we actually go, this isn't how I want to feel. I want to feel calm like Victor. I want to feel that kind of love and grace toward people around me. And I think that'll help you really make your message a little more clear and a little more strong if you encourage us to remember what it feels like to be annoyed by other people. So that's what I have for you, Victor. Again, excellent speech, and I look forward to hearing you do it again sometime soon. Back to you, Leah.